They were hidden in remote mountain villages, their beliefs carried like whispers passed down through generations. Christianity in Japan wasn't always something celebrated, far from it. Centuries ago, being a Christian could mean risking your life. But why would a nation go to such lengths to hunt down a religious group? How did a belief system become a secret so dangerous that families were forced to practice their faith in the shadows, risking everything if they were found? And here's the real mystery. Why, even today, does the legacy of those hidden Christians still linger in places most people wouldn't even think to look? Let's dive into a side of Japan that rarely makes it into history books. The side that reveals just how far people will go to protect what they believe. Stick around, because some of what you'll hear may surprise you. The arrival of Christianity in Japan and initial acceptance. In the 16th century, Japan encountered something completely new, a religion from far across the seas, Christianity. It all began with the arrival of Portuguese traders and missionaries who reached Japan around 1549. Leading the way was Francis Xavier, a Jesuit priest. He was one of the first to introduce Christianity to Japan, arriving with a mission to spread his faith and forge connections with the local communities. Initially, Japan's response was surprisingly positive. In the southern regions, especially in Kyushu, the local lords, or daimyos, saw potential benefits in aligning with these newcomers. Many of these daimyos welcomed the missionaries with open arms, seeing opportunities for trade, weapons, and influence. For some, Christianity became a mark of alliance with the powerful Portuguese traders who brought guns and foreign goods, things that could strengthen a lord's position against rivals. As a result, conversions started happening, and these conversions weren't just limited to the common people. They extended to samurai, merchants, and even some daimyos. By the end of the 16th century, around 300,000 Japanese people had become Christians. Entire villages, towns, and communities embraced this new faith, building churches and adopting Christian teachings into their lives. In some places, Christianity quickly became part of daily life, coexisting with Japan's native beliefs. But as the faith spread, it brought challenges to Japan's deeply rooted spiritual customs. Traditional beliefs like Shinto and Buddhism were deeply woven into Japan's identity, and Christianity's message sometimes clashed with these beliefs. The missionaries were passionate, but their approach occasionally felt rigid, especially as they preached against idol worship, a practice common in Japan's native religions. Soon, the Japanese leaders began to grow wary. They noticed that Christianity didn't just bring new ideas, it could also create divisions within society and challenge established authority. Tokugawa Shogunate's decision to ban Christianity. By the early 1600s, the Tokugawa Shogunate saw Christianity as more than just a new religion. It was becoming a threat to Japan's traditions and the shogun's authority. Christianity taught loyalty to a single divine power, something that didn't sit well with the shogunate, which relied on unity and loyalty to the shogun himself. The idea that people could pledge their allegiance to a higher power seemed dangerous, as it might weaken the control the shogunate held over the people. In 1614, Shogun Tokugawa Ieyasu decided to take a hard stand. He officially banned Christianity and expelled foreign missionaries from Japan. Ieyasu saw this as the only way to protect Japan's cultural heritage and prevent any foreign influence from taking root. For him, Christianity wasn't just a religion, it was a force that could disrupt the balance of power. But the restrictions didn't stop there. Under later shoguns, the ban on Christianity became even stricter. Japanese Christians were forced to renounce their faith, and those who refused faced severe punishments. The shogunate ordered Japanese citizens to register with Buddhist temples, a system designed to prove their rejection of Christianity. They even went as far as requiring suspected Christians to step on images of Christ, known as fumiya, as a test of loyalty. The shogunate's crackdown was relentless. By the 1630s, Japan was essentially closed off to the outside world, entering a period of isolation known as sakoku. Christianity had been driven underground, and for over 2 centuries, Japan remained closed, preserving its traditions and avoiding foreign influence at all costs. The persecution and extreme measures against Christians. Once the Tokugawa shogunate decided to eliminate Christianity, the methods they used were brutal beyond belief, especially under Shogun Tokugawa Ieyasu. They wanted to send a clear message to anyone who dared hold on to the forbidden faith. Christians faced horrific punishments aimed at either forcing them to renounce their beliefs or erasing them entirely. One of the shogunate's most ruthless tactics was public crucifixion, a spectacle designed to terrify others into abandoning Christianity. If that didn't work, authorities would subject believers to even more unimaginable tortures. Some were boiled alive, others were thrown off cliffs, and countless endured severe forms of torture meant to break their will. After the 1637 Shimabara Rebellion, things grew even worse. This rebellion was largely led by Christian peasants who were fed up with oppressive taxes and religious persecution. Although they were desperate and fighting for their beliefs and lives, the shogunate saw it as a direct threat and a Christian uprising. The shogunate's response was swift and ruthless. They sent over 100,000 troops to crush the rebels. The uprising was brutally suppressed, leaving tens of thousands dead, and the shogunate intensified its efforts to root out Christianity once and for all. To identify hidden Christians, officials forced suspected believers to trample on religious images, a practice called fumie. If they hesitated, they were immediately marked as Christians and faced torture or death. For decades, this kind of repression continued, effectively driving Christianity underground and ensuring it wouldn't pose a challenge to the shogunate's control. The Kokugaku Edict and Japan's isolation policy. In 1633, the Tokugawa shogunate took a decisive step to protect Japan from foreign influences with the Kokugaku Edict. This edict wasn't just a law, it was a sweeping policy to isolate Japan from the rest of the world, and it came with strict instructions. Foreigners were banned from entering Japan, and Japanese citizens were forbidden from traveling abroad. Those who dared to return from foreign lands risked execution. The shogunate's goal was simple: keep Japan pure and free from outside ideologies that could threaten their authority, particularly those tied to European Christians. By cutting off contact with the West, they believed they could shield Japanese society from ideas that could inspire resistance or loyalty to foreign powers, especially since Christianity had shown it could stir people's hearts toward a higher authority beyond the shogun. As part of the isolation policy, only the Dutch and Chinese were permitted to trade in Japan, and even then, this was confined to a single port, Dejima, a tiny man-made island in Nagasaki Bay. This setup allowed the shogunate to strictly monitor and control any foreign presence in Japan. For over 200 years, Japan remained almost entirely cut off from the world, focusing inward to solidify its own traditions, values, and authority. This period of isolation, known as sakoku, lasted until the mid-19th century, and it shaped Japanese society in ways that are still felt today. It was a bold and unique approach, one that marked a profound turning point in Japan's history. Christianity's secret survival in Japan. Despite the fierce crackdown, Christianity didn't vanish from Japan entirely. Some Japanese Christians, known as the Kakure Kirishitan, or hidden Christians, found ways to secretly practice their faith. These communities gathered in small, concealed groups, often in remote villages or mountain areas, adapting their practices to blend in with traditional Japanese customs to avoid detection. They couldn't openly display crosses, so they would carve tiny hidden symbols into ordinary items or even use Buddhist imagery to disguise their worship. To pass down their faith, the Kakure Kirishitan relied on oral tradition. They memorized prayers and stories from the Bible, passing them down through generations. It was a dangerous way of life, as any discovery of Christian practices could mean torture or death. Yet these believers held on to their faith, quietly defying the shogunate's orders for over 200 years. When Japan finally reopened to the world in the mid-19th century, these hidden Christians began to emerge from the shadows, revealing a legacy of resilience and devotion that had survived against all odds. Today, their story is a powerful reminder of the strength of faith, even in the face of extreme persecution. If you found this journey through history fascinating, make sure to subscribe to our channel for more deep dives like this.